any free-flowing water. So these men had to burn the seal blubber and that to melt their water for drinking and washing.
Their goal was to discover for the first time a new place.
That's right. They went to the South Pole and they brought back fossils on their return.
But you also show something that some may say isn't so attractive, although it's a very colorful picture.
Well, the odd thing is there's several art magazines in Europe have actually used this particular image of a dead penguin that's been stripped by skua, a predatory bird, as the front of their magazines.
Yeah, for us it's important to show the full cycle of life, not just the glorious, but the gory, but in a way that's artistic.
And that full cycle is definitely changing because these birds, these animals, have to go to the oceans here to be able to survive,
Exactly.
to feed. They're feeding on
Krill.
krill. Now, what is that?
Krill is like shrimp, and there's swarms of them. They are in huge numbers, and the whole food cycle depends upon krill. Even if it's a killer whale that doesn't eat krill, it eats something that eats krill. And the birds that are most in trouble in the Antarctic waters are the albatrosses and the large petrels.
Why?
Because of an accidental bycatch as a result of our fishing in the same waters. We've gone after Patagonian toothfish, for example, in a big way, and it's in the same waters where albatrosses feed. So as the longliners disgorge all their hooks, 80 miles of hooks behind each vessel, there's a chunk of frozen bait, and all the birds go in after the frozen bait, and the large petrels and albatrosses swallow the hooks, and they get stuck. They either get fatal wounds or they get pulled down and drowned.
Now, it wasn't easy for you to photograph some of the albatross.
No,
because I kept looking through the book and seeing these beautiful penguin colonies here.
Just by the way, that colony,
Largest colony on Earth.
Largest colony on Earth, 1 million birds. 1 million birds.
What did you do? Count them?
Somebody did, not
Somebody
us.
did.
Scientists.
There's scientists there.
They look like little specks. Now, when humans visit these places, are we disturbing, as human beings, the natural cycle?
The tourist expeditions that go to Antarctica have a certain protocol that require people to stay well back from any wildlife. And in fact, if you're at the peripheral edge of a penguin colony or that, you can just sit very quiet and still. The animals are totally unafraid of humans, and they will actually come right up to you. Just sit there quietly and peacefully. So you don't seem to in any way threaten them at all by doing that, and it's
It's legal to touch them if they come to you.
No,
you shouldn't touch them because you don't want to spread any diseases. In fact, when we come and go from a colony, we walk with our boots through a Javex bleach so you're not carrying organisms from one colony to the next colony and potentially spreading disease. Like, they're taking great care on that. And I've had penguins come so close to our tripods that they're pecking the tripod, and then I can't take any photographs because all my equipment's vibrating. All I can say is shoo, shoo, because you can't touch them.
Yeah, we don't touch them, and you shouldn't touch them.
But in photographing, you actually lived in tents. That might have been pretty difficult. I mean, I read your description and the wind's blowing, and it's not necessarily too warm. And everything's freezing, including your camera.
Well, that's right. It's could be up to minus 30 in the summer on the continent. And what was hardest for us is the 24 hours of daylight, because when do you sleep? There's always something to photograph and do. And the noise of the wind buffeting the tents, it was difficult. It certainly was a challenge. But our cameras, we had very manual cameras that didn't use a lot of battery power.
But sometimes the snow, the very fine talcum powder-like snow, can actually get inside some of your camera equipment. And it's important when that happens that you strip them down and clean them in an environment that isn't hot at all, isn't warmed above freezing, because of course it would melt inside your camera. So you clean it all out.
Well, it's still
in the cold.
You also took your very young son, who went into these penguin colonies to help the scientists. What did he do?
That's right, Glenn's job. Now, Glenn was only 7 at the time, One of his tasks when we came to colonies of penguins was to find the recently dead penguins and bring them over to Gary Miller, our scientist, and together they would do autopsies to determine why this penguin died, what was the reason for mortality. And there's some glands that they had to take out and put into vials. Yeah, Glenn had a grand time, and he took lots of pictures of the innards of penguins, which is something...
We never thought to photograph the innards of penguins.
You thought some of our pictures are blood and gore.
But the photographs that you have here, again, have such contrast in color. How did you manage that?
We spent a lot of time there. We were 2 years in Antarctica, and we were there constantly.
Summers.
Two photographers.
Yeah, 2 photographers, and there were...
So you don't really know who took some of these pictures,
no,
you or you?
No, what we often do is, if we're, say, doing a landscape or photographing an image such as the one on the far side, we'll have a tripod set up, and I might say to Rosemarie, what do you think of this? And she'll look and adjust it a little bit, and then we'll mutually compose an image and shoot it. So later, we don't know. Sometimes we're using the same cameras, photographing the same scene, and again, it doesn't matter. But like I said earlier, there are also favorites of mine, which I know Rosemarie took. She's a better photographer than I, in my opinion.
Oh,
so,
but you worked very hard in the composition of this book,
yes,
to the point where what is also so special is the binding and the quality.
Yeah.
This is very unique. You restored a very ancient printing process.
Exactly. Nancy, this book, this is a $3,000 book, and there's only 950 copies. That's
I feel very special to being able to touch it and look at it.
It's special in every way. It's a new printing technology. That's why we won the award you mentioned earlier. The photography's been recognized by the polar community as the most outstanding Antarctic imagery ever published.
And as Canadians, of course, the Canadians just are so thrilled and happy that you have created this.
The printing process was invented in Canada. The printing was done in Canada. We're Canadians, and the binding which you referred to goes right back to the techniques and skills of Venice from the 1500s.
It's the first book in the world to combine 2 hitherto thought to be incompatible styles of binding in one book. And so it's a book of many firsts, and it is being recognized as such by the international community.
And how did you pick the sizing? And this book, by the way, weighs 20 pounds, so you wanted big pictures.
It's a landscape format, and even though a lot of people have doubted it, we shoot 35 millimeter. It's the best format to use in wild spots like that, the easiest to handle. So these pages are laid out in a way that is most commendable to 35 millimeter pictures. And that's sort of what was the prerequisite in the layout of the pages.
And if we looked in the front, Queen Noor of Jordan is involved with signing these books too.
That's right. Each book has been individually autographed by both Pat and I, certifying that it's a genuine limited edition. Queen Noor has personally taken the time to sign each book in her capacity as honorary president of BirdLife International, the charity to which we've pledged 100% of the profits.
And she's attesting to the fact that all the proceeds are going to the Save the Albatross campaign.
This is unusual for you to have all the proceeds